Welcome to What's the Story Dublin, the official Dublin City Council podcast with me, your host, Michael Ryan. This podcast deep dives into the work of all the moving parts that make up Dublin City Council. It also shares news of the Council's latest initiatives and exciting events. In today's episode, we're joined by the City Arts Officer, Ray Yeates. Hey, thanks very much for joining us on the pod today.
Great.
You are the City Arts Officer. Now, just for people listening, not the City Art Officer, the City Arts Officer. So explain to people just what the difference is. I mean, arts encompasses a lot of different things.
Well, the arts are defined by legislation, believe it or not. In fact, the Minister is talking about including comedy as one of the art forms. That's been a proposal, just to give people an idea of what the scale is. So it's obviously the things you think about. There's theatre, there's visual arts, there's spectacle and circus. A lot of people don't think about that. Like a lot of things you see in the St. Patrick's Day Parade come from the spectacle circus end of the arts. There's film, there's dance, there's interdisciplinary arts. So there are different art forms come together. Obviously, the visual arts encompasses everything from video through to movement, through to negotiations, through to everything else. And I always leave a couple out, but basically you get the idea that it's different art forms. And our job is to be of service to all of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to have a personal favourite?
Well, I'm from a theatre background. Everyone knows that.
Okay.
So obviously, theatre people and me get on because we're from that tribe. But I'm not meant to have a bias, really.
And how does one become the City Arts Officer? What's your background?
Well, okay. As I said, my background's in the theatre, so I would have been 30 years working in the theatre before I applied for the job. I was actually director of Access Ballymun back in 2011 when I applied for the job.
Okay.
So I applied and I did an interview and I got it. Now, I probably had no idea what it really involved. I did know my predecessor, who was the first arts officer in Dublin, Jack Gilligan. I would have known him quite well. So I had an idea of the administrative burden of the job. But then, of course, an arts officer is more or less a person who is an opportunity maker, if you can think of it that way. It's a developmental job. So you may be working just with an idea that an artist has or a community has, and you can break the arts down into three parts. We say there's practitioners, like your musicians, your visual artists, whatever, who are trying to make a living out of this. There's participants, people who are learning. They're going to classes. They may indeed work alongside a professional artist in some way. And then there's audiences. And the virtuous circle is when those three things are moving inside a project. So you're involved in an awful lot of that. And the city councils are inclined to tend towards the participation part, as they do in sport and in community. They want people to use the arts as a way of expressing themselves as human beings inside their communities. That's what a city council would want. But places like the Arts Council would support the practitioner much more. They focus only on the practitioner. And we also, try to square the circle by saying you don't have great participation. Like you won't have a great choir without a great conductor. So it's that relationship of practice to participation. And we try to place ourselves as a developmental unit. I mean, a lot of people will be coming to us looking for money, of course, but mostly it's how do you build your idea so that it becomes valuable so that it will be funded.
Okay.
Is really what an arts office does.
Yeah.
Artists approached me recently that are quite well known in the spectacle and in the technology area, and they want to commemorate the 300th anniversary of Gulliver's Travels, which is in October this year, by building a hologram giant.
Wow.
And bring it into a major space. So
sounds fab.
Amazing. It's an amazing idea, right? And then, of course, there's X amount of money required. So I'm talking to different city sections, from the events unit to the smart cities, who might be interested in this, and their own department in C-Class, in the culture community department, because it could be a major event for the city. But I'm also watching for the self-interest of the city that is, bringing large amounts of people to a free event in the retail core, supports our ratepayers and supports communities and supports families. So that's, I'd be working away to helping with the development of that at the moment. How's a project managed? Can we do some kind of test to make sure that it works? But also it's the relation. I know the artists involved for more than 20 years. So you are in some sense a conduit for artists to approach the city, and you mediate between that community and then maybe the economic community who say, why should we be spending this money? Where's the value to this? And then, other, and health and safety who say, will you kill us all if you do this? So you have to have that kind of broad range of skills, or at least the ability to negotiate.
I think you mentioned there that you're only the second city arts officer. Yeah. Does that mean that, I suppose we're taking the arts more seriously? The fact that we've appointed an arts officer, or does it, or I suppose thinking back, like given that you're only the second person who's had the job, did it mean that we didn't take it seriously enough in years gone by or decades gone by?
I don't think so. No, it's required under the Arts Act that each local authority has an arts officer. And they give them a very broad brief. They say to develop the arts in your administrative area, which could kind of mean anything.
Could mean anything, yeah.
So each arts office is very different, and but there's one in each county. So there'll be an arts officer in Cavan and in Longford, and so they're all doing the same thing, and they're all giving out arts grants, or they're dealing with the Creative Ireland programme. But they're also, they are, being approached by either other sections of the council or by artists or communities trying to get involved in the arts in some way.
Right, yeah. Did you come up with the idea for Culture Night?
No, Culture Night, I've certainly been very involved in it, but Culture Night originated in Temple Bar Cultural Trust.
Okay.
And it's our version of a thing called White Nights in France. Right. Or cultural institutions. And it originally began in Temple Bar, where just the institutions there stayed open late. Mm-hmm. And it became such a phenomenon that every city...
It's spread all around the country now.
Yeah. But when Temple Bar Cultural Trust was mainstreaming back into the council, I moved it. I was working there in Temple Bar Cultural Trust as well at the time. I moved it over into the arts office, and it started to expand even further. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and it's been a huge success.
It's a huge success, yeah.
So in terms of the arts office, you're based in the lab on Foley Street here in the city centre. Just tell us a little bit about what the office actually does.
Well, there are. We sometimes have people on maternity. Who's in and who's out? There's 5 arts officers. So originally that was one per administrative area in the city. But they're very, like Sinead Connolly would be. Was one of the founders of the office, and has been there from the beginning. And would be very involved in things like children's art and libraries, which is one of our big programs. And she, supports the Literature Festival, which will be happening now in May, and a variety of other programs. But again, each arts officer will be approached by projects and ideas all the time. There's a public art officer who succeeded Rory O'Keefe, who retired recently, Mae Butler, and she is out, developing new public art projects. And there's an awful lot of new monies coming into public art because of the amount of development that's occurring in the city.
Right.
So she's doing everything from, commemorating Christy Brown in Crumlin, with an artwork, through to developing, a thing called Citizen Commissioners, which Rory founded, where local people are allowed to commission art themselves after a period of time of training themselves up to do that. You've got Trina Humphreys, who transferred to us from housing. Trina's very involved out in the north central part of the city, particularly Clongriffin. Mm-hmm. So we like those frontiers, those spaces where there's no arts or very little arts.
Yeah.
And see, can we get in and
make an impact, I suppose.
Yeah. You get disrupted quite quickly, and disruption is a part of the arts way of working. Like resource organisations like Theatre Forum, like the Irish Theatre Institute, like Visual Arts Ireland, they're resource organisations for artists, for those art forms. They would have disrupted arts offices. Arts offices were doing all of that.
Okay.
Until those organisations began about 15 years ago or so, or 20 years ago. So now, where does the arts office go when those functions are getting mainstreamed or getting into their own organisations? So you go out to other frontiers. You go out to, there's very little arts infrastructure in the North Central area. So we've been more than 7 years working out there. Last night I was at the Arts Centre Development Committee, which consists of councillors, artists in the area and community staff, and we talking about how do we build an arts centre in North Central. We've been going to other arts centres in other countries, and saying, what model do we want to combine a library, let's say, with an arts centre, which is so that's developmental work. You're not actually project managing anything. You're just talking about ideas and how to bring them into value and then eventually into reality.
Yeah. And that idea of getting new audiences for arts is a big part of your remit, right?
Absolutely. What happens, why people go to the arts and what happens when they get there are very different.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like if you say to yourself, I've never been to a theatre show, but I went to one and it was amazing. But I didn't realise, but I was being blocked by the fact that I'd never been to it before. So I met a lot of that in Ballymun, like people saying to me, when I went to the theatre, what happens? Like audience members would say to me, because they had no background of ever seeing a show.
So they literally didn't know how it all
what would
played
happen.
out?
No, what would happen? And there was a certain amount of fear. Like, you know, someone said to me, will there be tables and chairs? Or they actually just didn't know what was going to happen. So that's a very exciting place to be actually, because you get this very amazing connection then between what's happening in the audience and what's happening on the stage.
Yeah.
So I love that space. And I also like the space where people are empowered. Like they suddenly go, oh, like, you know, I'm a kid at school and I didn't know what I was doing, but then I discovered, you know, whatever it was, you know, I discovered, you know, graphics on my computer and somebody showed me how to work on them. And then an artist came in and he actually does that for a living. And suddenly there's a passion
it opened up that route for them potentially.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a parent, so what all parents want is for the child to discover a passion. It doesn't really matter what it is. You know, but the arts is definitely one of them that they can discover, and it'll do nothing but help them, you know, in whatever journey they're going on. And
in terms of the arts office in the lab on Foley Street, you provide lots of different courses and services and things that people come in and use the facilities there, right?
Yeah, it was interesting that when I came into the job 15 years ago, you know, I didn't really want it to be about a building. You know, now, paradoxically, now it's all about buildings because of building new infrastructure. But the building is certainly one of our resources. So people rent it out, right? Very low cost. I think it's €40 a day to come in and rehearse there. So everyone from the Abbey Theatre through to, you know, fringe shows come in and rehearse in the lab. There's 4 studios and it runs from 9 to 9. So, you know, and in the morning it's the daytime rehearsals, at night it's acting classes, Bollywood classes, dance classes. Saturday is full of kids doing dance. It's a funny thing at the council. We don't celebrate what we do, because everyone's just pointing out what we're not doing all the time. And it's fine. There's unlimited demand. But, you know, a place like the lab was a give back from a developer, you know, who was developing Foley Street. They also gave back another building, Dance House, which houses Dance Ireland and has everything in it, as I was saying, from set dancing classes to Aikido classes to ballet. All occurs in that. And some theatre shows go in there from overflow from us as well. Yeah. So another buildings like that are in really high demand. You know, finding a low-cost rehearsal space for your play, very, very difficult thing to do. And when I worked in the theatre, you were like begging the parish priest to let you use the
local hall.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah,
because you didn't have the money to rent it out at $1,000 a week or whatever.
Yeah,
you know. So the lab provides that service, but also very few people know that we actually work there. We're in offices, you know, off the studios, but. Because I'm constantly meeting former colleagues who say to me, "Were you in rehearsal shows?" And I said, "No, actually, I work here." So I like that. I like the invisibility of the work as well. That you're at the back of an event, maybe that you helped develop, but nobody knows that you were ever there. But that was very much that's what theatre directors do. They're obvious by their absence.
Sure. Yeah. You know? You mentioned there that people sometimes talk about the stuff that we don't do, and for all the great stuff that we do in the city, people you will have critics saying we don't do enough. We don't provide enough artist spaces, for example. You know, we take artist spaces away. We're not doing enough. What do you say to those people?
I think there are forces, economic forces being probably the strongest. And human beings decided a long time ago that was the dominant force, that making money and paying for things, goods and services was the centre of our society. Like, I didn't make that decision. If someone said to me it wasn't going to be that, it was going to be making art, I would have said, okay, that's not the centre of society. And if it was, life would be structured very differently. So once that's decided, and it's a very big decision, the first question most people say to me is, okay, Ray, who's paying for this?
Yeah.
Right? So you want to build your new artist studios, where are you getting the money? Where is it? Right? Now, I try to avoid that question as long as possible because, again, I'm trying to build value. And there's a very strange thing happens. I used to raise money for a living when I worked in America, where people stop going, God, that's a lot of money, to that's actually really cool and we should try and find the money for that. So there's a journey from...
mindset change, kind of.
Totally, where you go from cost to value. So the arts are very valuable, but they cost a lot of money, but they make a very big impact. Now, if you go off and say there's a multiplier, which there is, so I think it's about two point something of every euro you put into the arts, you get that back. Nobody believes that. I don't think that. And in social terms, it's 4 times seemingly the impact of the euro. But that doesn't really matter. What matters to people is a very short term, how much money does that put in my till today type of attitude. And that's a very difficult place for the arts to be. Apart from the Abbey Theatre is obviously supporting maybe 3 or 4 restaurants around it.
Yeah.
Or, an art gallery opening is going to empty into the bar next door. Everybody kind of wants that. So we know that it has those economic effects, but mostly it reminds us that there is actually more to life than just how much are we worth. That's really where the arts are. So if a kid is looking at a painting, it doesn't matter where that kid is from or where their parents went to school. What matters is they're having this experience. Or if they're in here in the library reading a book, that's their experience. And the validation of that is the centre of what the arts is.
The arts world took like so many sectors of society, I suppose, took a real hammering during COVID, didn't it? Has it recovered yet? Fully?
I don't think so, but it also got a lot more government investment during that time. People really began to value the arts and artists. The Arts Council got a 75% increase around that time. Now, we're still miles behind as a base from European investment, but I genuinely think the Irish people passionately care about the arts. Scratch them and they care about them. They really care, and they really want the artists in their family or the artists that they know, and the artists themselves to do very well. Like, I remember when the Abbey Theatre was in financial difficulty, I think about 15 or 16 years ago, the public came out and said, no, you must keep this, So there's a sense that you are supported by the public, and if you're not, you really won't get anywhere. Ultimately, we all serve the public and what the public want. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. In terms of the spaces we provide around the city, I mean, obviously we have the lab on Foley Street, as we just talked about a few minutes ago. What other spaces do we provide in Dublin?
Well, we have artist residences. We have 2 at Albert Park. We have 1 in St. Patrick's Park, and we have 1 in Temple Bar. And artists apply to us once a year from all around the world to come and spend 6 months to a year.
From all around the world,
All around the world, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we would get quite an awful lot of applications, because that in itself is part of an artist's journey, is sometimes to go on residence to another country.
Okay.
And, sit in Albert Park and be writing their next, book of poetry or composition.
Yeah. Do we get a bigger, is it that they really want to come to Ireland or Dublin, or that they really want to just come to another country? It doesn't really matter where it is, do you think?
It could be either. It could be both, Some artists are moving from residency to residency, and they could do 5 years of that kind of pilgrimage around the world as they're developing their practice, or they could come for a particular project. They're coming in, they're doing a major exhibition somewhere, and they apply to us for that year of residency. So it depends, and we just take them on merit. It's there have been Dublin artists as well who've decided that they'd be in our residence for a year. There's those there. We're the owner of a company that runs the Dublin Municipal Theatre at Smock Alley. So that's a city-owned company, and we're all very involved in that transition. We're funding either in a small way through arts grants or in a big way. We own Access Ballymun, where I used to work. It's on a 100-year lease to the Access company, but and we're a core funder there.
That'll outlive us both, right?
Huh?
That'll outlive us both.
It will,
100-year lease.
Yeah, amazing, yeah. But the big thing that we're involved in now is through the development plan. The Arts Office and the planners got involved in creating what's called the 5%. And the 5% says that every new development above 10,000 square metres must have 5% creative community cultural. Controversial in a way too. Developers felt that this was an imposition. Some of them, some of them felt they wouldn't be able to make them pay. Where were the? So we developed a toolkit for these spaces for developers. We are constantly introducing consultants to them to hook them up to the arts community. So various buildings are now starting to land, because it's kind of 3 to 5 years ago. So expect that there will be new spaces. There's going to be a new building on Oscar Traynor Woods, which the city will take over, which will involve everything, I think, from sport through to the arts. There's new buildings down in East Wall which have come in, so there's a lot of new arts infrastructure is going to arrive into the city over the next 5. But it's understandable, because our population has grown, and there's all these new housing estates, and there's going to be new spaces.
Can you tell us any more sort of upcoming high-profile projects that people will see over the next few years, if you're allowed to? Or?
Yeah, I'm involved in the redevelopment of 89 Merchants Quay. These are city-owned buildings. Number 9 is a fully restored 18th century townhouse with a Viking slipway in the basement,
Wow.
which is tidal. And next door was it was purchased by the city. It's the number 8 was the Franciscan Publications. And then at the back of number 8 is the old St. Anthony's Theatre, which was a kind of 100-seater community theatre.
Mm-hmm.
We're restoring all of this with a major private donor, and the city are working together. And that should be ready in 2028. And I've been working on that since 2019. And it would have 20 artist studios.
Wow.
There beside the Liffey. We're restoring St. Werburgh's Church. We got planning permission last year into a concert venue, but also a tourist attraction and a place for interdenominational spiritual practice. And again, that should go on site this year. And again, it'll be kind of 2 years. So, yeah, there are quite a lot of buildings. My life is very much about buildings.
Yeah. Are you involved in the commemorative monument to the women of the independence movement? And
the relationship between commemoration and the arts is very interesting because a lot of people to offer us works of art, please take my father's painting collection and put it in the city collection.
Right.
Or please commemorate, whoever it might be, would you not do this? And we have to consider those things very carefully, right? For example, you must be 20 years dead before we will commemorate you, because otherwise we'll be caught up in the grief of lots of events. The women of the revolution is an interesting one because, first of all, there has to be a decision by the commemorative part of the city to commemorate. Then they pass it over to the arts part of the city to say, how would that be implemented? Right. So will there be will artists be called from around the world? And I think that is what's going to happen in that case. We're going to put out an international call and we're going to try and build a major monument. Probably, hopefully, on O'Connell Street, if we can figure out all of the technical permissions required from all the national agencies involved in O'Connell Street. Yeah, it's long overdue. A lot of people would say there's too many statues of men and not enough statues of women. There's only statues of men, isn't it? Really, because but we no longer live in the golden age of sculpture. There isn't a John Henry Foley that can produce, what he produced throughout the city. So if you look at the various statues produced throughout the country, they're often of very poor quality. So finding a great sculpture, like Luke Kelly was a great example, in my time, of trying to find somebody that could actually reproduce something that people would say, that is Luke Kelly and it captures his spirit.
Like you want to get this right, don't you? I mean,
so we're a long way from knowing what the monument is, because is it going to be a modern type of work? Or is it going to be a traditional figurative type of work? And if it's commemorating women, not a particular woman, what does that mean? And how is that done? So those headaches arrive. But mostly we want artists to apply and just surprise us. So like, did you ever think of doing it like that? And we say, but we have to create the conditions for that to happen. Yeah.
It's exciting to be involved in a project like that, I'm sure. It's something that will hopefully last for a long time and people will see it for generations.
But everything, like in the Arts Centre community last night, people were saying, but is it a sports building or is it a community building or is it an arts building? And I said, well, we would try to work for everyone's win. It's a win-win, increased resources type of idea. So it's the same as, if people want it to be, you don't have some terrible trade-off. You end up with not enough of anything. But if you can find shared spaces, like if you were talking about the relationship between sport and the arts, gymnastic dance, circus, acrobatics, that's a place where it can win-win, So I'd be looking for the same in that particular project. Can we find an amazing thing? But also we have to step away from the literal as well. It's definitely the shape of a woman. Like there's no rules. There's only just kind of principles. And remember too, everyone hated the spire when it arrived. Everyone hated it. It was hated nationally. Now it's loved. So you can't be sure about.
Yeah, tastes change, I suppose.
Yeah, and what's good and what you like are maybe two different things.
Yeah. And maybe you don't know whether you like something or not unless you see it. A bit like you were saying earlier on about going to the theatre and you don't know what it's like. You're maybe a bit afraid of what it might look like.
Exactly. So you keep leaving the space for that. And I remember years ago someone was asking me about this and I said, actually, I love all the disagreements. I've been with councillors, for example, who say, get rid of that awful thing that you're after putting up outside City Hall, and walk over to the other bunch of councillors and say, oh, we love that thing outside City Hall, And that's really why the job is interesting.
Yeah. You've been doing it a while, but you're obviously passionate about it. You enjoy your work.
I never know what's kind of come next, It could be, we want to put portraits of women into the Mansion House, which causes, how will that change the Mansion House?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a quality that we want? How would it aesthetically change it? So I have to gather together everybody to try and talk about this. And actually, that's what I enjoy is people and their different opinions and learning.
Mm-hmm.
You suddenly realize I never realized that, and suddenly you learn something. And I think if you're not kind of learning on the job or learning with the job, it gets, you're getting into the place where you probably should think about not doing it.
Yeah. Well, I've learned something today, so thanks for coming on the pod. I suppose the last thing just to mention, the Arts Office has a website. People can go and find out information about what you do.
Dublin City Arts Office.ie.
Okay.
You'll find us and you'll see, everything from our funding to how to get in touch with us, to how to use our buildings.
How to get a grant, all that sort of, apply for a grant.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Ray, thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks again to today's guest, Ray Yeates. I'd also like to extend my thanks to our audio engineer and editor, Rob Fay. This podcast was produced by Shane McIntyre and myself, Michael Ryan, and recorded in the Central Library studio. Be sure to spread the word if you're enjoying What's the Story Dublin, and like and subscribe for future episodes. Take it handy.